Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and I want to talk about the uses, the the functionality paths of the D&D narrative. Okay, now the reason we're going to talk about this today, and this is going to be an exploration, so I'm going to explain everything that I think is an actual functionality path for a D&D narrative, and then I want you to fill in the gaps if I miss anything, because I think this is a complex subject. And I think it's possible that we don't even know all the different functionality paths of a D&D narrative at this point. Now, first of all, what do I mean by D&D narrative? So first of all, let me explain what it is not. If you play in some silly Goblin Chop game where Frank is drinking a beer and Steven is eating a pretzel, if you play in some, silly Goblin Chop beer and pretzels, we get together every Saturday for fun nonsense, I'm not talking about you, right? That is the most repugnant, useless form of Dungeons and Dragons. And if you're here, honestly, if you're here, abandon that. Like, there, you have no excuse. The rest of the world does. I think there are people who are ignorant of my channel, which I understand. I don't have the farthest reach in the world, but I do think my reach is growing. And I also, one of the reasons why I continue to do this, I know D&D insiders know me. Like, it's extremely rare for anybody to get serious about D&D and not be aware of my take on D&D. Not everybody agrees, but not many are ignorant of it. Like, don't know it exists. Just increasingly, it's just not the case. Okay, designers at D&D are quite aware of my take. I know that, right? Because I've had people who have lunches and dinners with them who have talked to me about it. So, like, we're there. All right. Oh, and I'm very blessed. Professor Dungeon Master responds to me every now and then, and that guy is a very serious D&D insider, and he has talks throughout the industry, including D&D designers. Right? Very interesting. Okay, so So I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about a D&D table where everybody at the table is coming and they want to tell a story together, and they're serious about it. They're committed to it, and they have a sense that D&D can be used for more than fun. I'm not saying you have to 100% sign on to what I'm saying, but you definitely have to have at least one Dragon Master. You have to have a Dragon Master at your table. You have to have a Dungeon Master at your table and a Dragon Master, somebody who actually understands that there's a functional value to Dungeons and Dragons and that it can be used for powerful things and is moving toward that. Okay, so that's what I mean by a D&D narrative. A powerful, useful story. Okay, so what are the functionality paths? Okay, so you as the Dungeon Master, you begin the story. The Dragon Master then changes the story. The the one Dungeon Master changes this, starts the story. The 5 Dragon Masters, modify the story. The 6 Math Rocks adjust the story for both Dragon Master and Dungeon Master. The story is rolling. So what are its functionality paths? What are its uses? Number 1, for the enjoyment of everybody at the table, to bring joy to each person at the table at some point. And I will say, you don't have to feel joy. You can replace that with sorrow. You can replace that with... so let's not say joy. It's for everybody at the table to feel an honest, powerful, impacting emotion. That could be joy, that could be sorrow, that could be a whole range of emotions, right? Okay. And so for one, it's everybody is there and they're feeling emotions, right? The story is moving them to actually feel a genuine emotion that they don't normally feel, right? That needs some kind of... So that's use 1. And that's for everybody, right? Everybody at the table should be feeling a genuine emotion, right? So emotional expression, that's functionality path number 1. Next is the narrative. Next is the story, okay? A narrative contains a story plus. A narrative contains a story plus. But the story is there, okay? And that story is important, right? I went, my 2nd level character went to slay an adult green dragon, and they had no magical weapons, and they had no potions, and they died. That is a story. You can learn tactical information from that story, and that Dragon Master is gonna walk away with that story. So the Dragon Master captures the story. Okay. Now here's the next one. Did that Dragon Master capture the personal message from the Dungeon Master to them? Okay. And what was that personal message? Well, Sally took her second level character with no magic items and no potions to slay an adult green dragon, and her character died. Okay. Now, why was that green dragon there? Well, the Dungeon Master knows that Sally is pursuing a new paramour, right? But Sally works at a Jamba Juice and neglects her health, and the paramour she's seeking owns a private jet and spends half their time working and half their time on improving their health, right? And so the Dungeon Master was kind of telling, there was a personal message there, right? The Dungeon Master can't say, Sally, you're a sad sack Jamba Juice worker and you're never going to get this paramour, right? Like you haven't done enough with your life to warrant that person's love, right? There you go. Like, she can't say that, and the reason why is they're friends or they're associates. And that would be, and the reality is Sally has not asked for that advice, and it's none of that person's business, right? To tell her directly, but she can put it in a narrative, and she can give her that message in the Dungeons and Dragons narrative, right? That personal message can be given to that player. They may get it, or they may not, right? And you're like, well, Scott, why wouldn't you just say it outright, right? Well, this is the entire point, right? This is why you are here, okay? I do not believe in transparent, full communication. I think that is one of the most ridiculous concepts I've ever heard. Smart people realize that conversations are incredibly difficult dances of priority, sequencing, and consequence, right? And the reality is the most important things you need to say, you cannot say. And the reality is you could say them. You could use, high transparency. You're just a jerk. And you're also bad at human communication. The reality is, my favorite hero, Jesus, did this. He was like, hey, here's a parable. Why didn't you just tell me, Jesus? Because the parable is more powerful, right? The Dungeons and Dragons there's a remove with Dungeons and Dragons. We can say things to a person through Dungeons and Dragons that we could never say to their face outright, right? It would be incredibly cruel to say, hey, you're a fast food worker and you don't work on your health and you're pursuing someone who's a titan of industry who's constantly working on their health. It's a bad idea. They're never going to love you. You're not worthy of their love. It would be terrible to say that, but you could say it in Dungeons and Dragons. Boy, can you say it in Dungeons and Dragons. You'd be like, hey, if you're going to slay a dragon, you better get a +1 sword. You better get a +2 shield, right? You better get some magical plate mail, right? And you better bring some potions. You're not ready, right? You need to improve your gear. You need to improve your skills. You ain't ready. You're going to get wrecked, right? And you could say that with Dungeons and Dragons. That's incredibly powerful. It's a personal message, right? It's really powerful and it's significant, right? So that personal message is extremely important, okay? Here's the next one. The personal message to the entire party, okay? There's a message that you can say to the entire party, right? Now, the reality is I don't have a good example of this because I'm still kind of processing in my head, but I'm very convinced that this can be done in Dungeons and Dragons. And you're like, wait a second, Scott, you're just bringing an idea and you ain't got full execution on it? Yeah, man, it's 2024. We communicate extremely quickly and we talk in progress, right? It's the way we do things, right? So that's an important part as well. Those are just some of the functionality paths of Dungeons and Dragons that I know of. Did I miss any? Were there others? I know there are others, actually. But based on the limitation of the time in this video, I'm gonna cut it off there. And we cut it off there. Every single word you just heard is my humble opinion on how to deliver personal messages with Dungeons and Dragons. The important part is when I get to hear your humble opinion when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a fetch millennium.